about to completely restructure your relationship with money through a shamanic healing. It is going to be super fun and magical and whimsical, and is really going to support your inner children as well. Because oftentimes when we're even thinking about the word money, it can be triggering and bring up a lot of anxiety and fear, and our central nervous system is kicking on. The adrenaline, the cortisol, the trauma wounds, it's all being brought to the surface. And so we need to switch the perspective in which we are viewing it to something that is very whimsical and brings us feelings of happiness and joy. And that is how we become a magnet to more of it. You're going to want to buckle in for this healing and save it for later as well, so you can come back to it. It's going to be about 18 minutes long. If you go all the way through it, you're going to come out on the other side a completely different person. Before we get into it, this is the first of 7 video transmissions inside my Magic Money Quest course. This is going to be for the Mage. This is very much rooted in mysticism and working with archetypal energies. If you enjoy this, I really recommend signing up for the course so that you can also connect to the magician, the sorceress, the enchantress, the wizard, the witch, and the alchemist, and also go through their insights and downloads and wisdom on bringing more wealth into our lives. Similar styles, but completely different medicine and magic. And there's a lot more in the course as well, but this is going to give you a sneak preview of what the energetics are like within the Magic Money Quest. To register for that, you can go to my bio or look in the comments, and let's get into the Mage's wealth activation. I went into your energy field. You and I were standing in the middle of a field, the actual field. Like, you have your own energetic field, but this is like one with grass. And so we're standing there talking with one another. All of a sudden, there were so many mages that appeared. And they were standing around us in a big circle and said, "Huzzah!" That was their greeting. One of them stepped forward towards us, held out their hands like this for us to put one of our hands in theirs, the mage, and all of a sudden we teleported into the tundra. This is where there was a lot of snow. It was very windy, not a whole lot of sun. It was very intense with the elements. And then the mage disappeared. And you and I looked at each other and we're like, what the heck? I looked at you and said, well, I guess that's part of our journey today. And you said, okay, well, let's get moving. I snapped my fingers and we put on some really warm clothes, and you said, that's better. As we were walking through the snow, we didn't really walk for that long, honestly. We came up to a jungle that was very tropical and humid and warm and sunny. It was a stark juxtaposition to the tundra, and it was almost like there was a distinct cutoff from the two of them. Like you would take 2 different countries in the world that are like far away from one another, but all of a sudden like butt them up against each other. And so we stepped into the jungle, and you looked at me and said, we need to go find some cacao. I said, oh, like a cacao tree? And you said, yes. I'm going to show you a picture of what they look like here. They grow pods on them. We're walking, and then we come across one of the trees, and I said, oh, look, there's some of the pods. And I looked at you and asked, how do you think that we can get some of them down? And at first, you were contemplating climbing the tree. However, that was getting a little dangerous as we did not have a ladder. And you looked around in the jungle, and you said, and you found this really long stick, and you picked it up and you threw it at the pods like a javelin, and you hit one and it fell to the ground. You picked it up in your hands and looked at me and said, what do we do now? I said, well, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to open it up. When you cracked it open, this is what we found inside. And there's all these cacao beans within. And you said, yes, treasure. I asked, do you want to eat one of them? And so we're munching on them, and then we're like, oh my God, it's so bitter. And the energy that we were really feeling was accomplishment. because we had figured this out together on our own. I mean, together, but we didn't necessarily have to have the mage there with us. And some of the other lessons here are resourcefulness, like you finding the stick on the ground, and then co-collaborating with other people is really fun. This is when the mage showed back up and wanted to offer their piece of advice, and I'm going to read from my notes here. The journey to the reward is just as important as the treasure. Us feeling accomplished and seeing how resourceful that we were and that we were having fun together in this experience was just as gratifying as actually finding the cacao beans within the pod. The mage said, you can tell people something all the live long day, but wouldn't it be more impactful for them to experience it themselves? And what they meant by this was they could have told us this story and this narrative of two other travelers, but how more deeply resonant is it going to be for both of us for us to firsthand experience it? We both looked at the mage and asked, why are we learning this lesson in the first place? How does this relate to us magnetizing more wealth into our lives? The mage said it's about building a foundation of staying curious. You could have stayed in the tundra and waited for somebody to rescue you. However, you decided to blaze your own trail and put your resourcefulness to the test. The mage looked at us and said, time for your next trial. Dun, dun, dun. And they said, just kidding. The mage asked, why do you think that you found cacao beans in the first place? You said, chocolate is a luxury item, not in its cost, but in its richness. Because something that you can do with cacao beans is turn it into chocolate. And the mage looked at you and said, you could have found anything in the world, anything in existence, but you found cacao beans. Why do you think that is? Why were we drawn to that specifically? You said luxury, which is representative of chocolate and cacao beans. Luxury is my natural state of being. And I thought that was really funny. Like being, bean, it's giving silly pun. You said that is why I was attracted to it. Luxury, the cacao beans. But I feel like I have to work for it and put a lot of effort in. And that's representative by the journey that we went on to get there. Because the mage didn't just drop us off in the tundra for no reason. We could have gone literally anywhere. The tundra was coming from your own consciousness because you are equating luxury to hard work and effort. And that's why we started off in such an arduous and challenging place. I looked at you and said, well, what do you want to experience instead? Because hard work and a lot of effort is not the vibe. I mean, sometimes it is. We like to strengthen our capacities and what we're able to do, but we also like things to be an easier of a process and chill. And you said, I want manifestation to be an effortless process. And this is when I saw a contradiction in your field, subconscious, and your beliefs. It's not worth it if I didn't have to grind for it, which is another pun because we're talking about cacao beans and grinding the beans. But basically it's you're wanting to experience a new level of wealth, prosperity, abundance, and luxury, but we have to put in so much more time and energy and effort in order to get there. Otherwise, you're going to feel like you kind of cheated the system, or who am I to receive all of these blessings if I didn't put blood, sweat, and tears into it? I looked at you and said, where do you think that's coming from? That line of thinking and those beliefs. And you said, I was told you have to work hard for what you have. That is a product of conditioning and programming from society, culture, religion, the government, capitalism. It is regurgitations of generational trauma from parents and caretakers. You looked at me and said, I know that I am meant to be rich and living in luxury, but I can feel the burnout I'm going to experience along the way. And this is when I said your body, like your physical self and your central nervous system, are actually pushing larger financial wealth away from you. So you do not have to experience that trauma of burnout. It is a safety mechanism. The schematics that you are running right now is a lot of money equals a lot of work. I said, do you think that that's true? Or do you think that it is a paradigm, a story, a narrative, or a belief? By simply questioning those lines of belief, you looked at me and said, I see people working so hard and having a difficult time getting ahead. Hard work does not always equal more money. Because if that were the case, people who are working everyday jobs and putting in a lot of time, energy, and effort would be the richest people in the world. This is where we're going to do an energetic reset. I said, let's think about when we first started on our journey in the tundra. We both started off in a seemingly difficult situation. Maybe that is you in life starting out with lack mentality or money wounds and having programming and conditioning. We are starting a little bit further back than people that do not have those beliefs to begin with. Instead of staying stuck in that place because you're a very self-aware being who's always about growth and momentum, ask yourself, what can I do to create forward movement from where I am at right now? And the answer to that was to start walking. We didn't know where we were going. We just knew that it would be better than where we were at. This is a question that the Mage wants you to continuously ask yourself throughout life. What can I do to create forward movement from where I am at right now? Then we want to be open to new experiences. And that is shown through the analogy of us going from the tundra into the jungle. Very different experiences. But you are willing to say, I'm going to step outside of my comfort zone and do something new. Then we want to listen to our intuition and the insights that are coming through. When you got that download from your higher self of, hey, let's go find some cacao beans. And you said, okay. The next step is not asking a million questions and over analyzing it and getting too in your logical and analytical minds. It's, I got this message for a reason and it feels right. It must be the breadcrumb that's going to take me further into my journey and lead me to the next steps. That is a lesson in asking yourself, how does this feel when you are getting insights, when you're listening to your intuition and your higher self, and then taking inspired action based off of the pings. Then we want to ask ourselves, what is the easiest way to do this? How can I make this more fun? And that was showcased by not climbing up the cacao tree, which was not going to be the best option and could lead to some dangerous activities. You utilized your resourcefulness and found something that was going to be easier, the stick, and throwing it like the javelin. And then that was fun for you to really get into it. Then we simply ask, what do I need to do next? When you picked up the cacao pod, it felt right to crack it open. And then that was the correct answer. You aligned yourself with luxury in a way that was very easy. And remember, the luxury is the cacao beans. And this all happened in the span of 5 minutes when I was in there experiencing this with you. Going from the tundra and the jungle and then finding the tree and getting the pod and the beans. It was literally 5 minutes. You quantum collapse time to bring luxury into your reality with ease and grace. The Mage wanted to do a recap of all of the insights that we have gleaned. This is a formula that you are going to apply to every single thing in your life to experience huge payoffs. So that looks like, what can I do to create forward movement from where I am at right now? We're going to be open to new experiences, stepping outside of our comfort zone, trying new things, listening to our intuition and how that feels, following the nudges, the breadcrumbs, taking inspired action, asking ourselves, what is the easiest and most fun way to do this? Asking yourself, what do I do next? and then going through that process again and again and again. Every time you get an answer, it is going to lead you towards the easiest path to take. And when I said that to you, you said, oh, this does feel a lot easier. And I said, does luxury feel like hard work or ease? And you said, it feels like ease. And I said, great. You are not going to get to luxury through hard work, because that is not the frequency of luxury. The frequency of luxury is ease and alignment. Alignment. That is asking yourself, what can I do to create forward movement, and taking a breath and taking a pause and waiting for that answer from your higher self and your intuition, and then following the formulaic steps that we created together. And that is pure alignment. This is when the mage came over to you and said, you are already a luxurious being. You are already a luxurious being. You carry that within you, and that's why you were drawn to the cacao beans in the first place. Instead of saying luxury is somewhere that I am trying to get to, we need to say, I am luxury. Not the external things around you or the experiences. It is you at your core being. I am luxury. Every cell in my body runs on that energy, luxurious energy. If you can really feel that as your truth, because it is evidentially based by us finding cacao beans, then reality will shift to your natural state of being. Luxury happens in here first. If you can confidently say, I am luxury, you will start to notice where you are already experiencing luxury in life. It will continue to amplify in the easiest ways, because it's not something that you need to work for. It is something you are already experiencing because you simply exist. If you are radiating luxurious energy out of your field, of course you're going to be a magnet to more luxurious experiences because that is your base homeostasis. So we have been trying to achieve something outside of us when it is something that needs to be felt within first. This is when we thank the Mage so much for guiding our journey today. And this concludes the Mage's wealth activation. And we want to couple this with the personality traits, the legendary mages, the bio description, and the pictures and music that we are listening to support us in embodying the mages' medicine, insights, downloads, and their magic into our everyday life. Now we have a little bit of a clearer depiction of how would a mage handle XYZ. Whether that's money or anything else that you got going on in your life. We have a better understanding of their processes and how they view challenges, growth opportunities, and the way that they experience reality. So I am super excited to see you in the next section where we're going to dive into the archetype of the magician.